in London with Charlene White.
Tonight, claims of more fire safety failings after a tower block fire in East London. Residents heard no fire alarms and were alerted of the fire by word of mouth. They'd already complained about the building's stay put policy.
Thinking what happened yesterday and seeing that fire, I don't feel safe to go back in.
Also on the programme, as President Zelensky addresses Parliament, the campaign to rename a street in London after him near the Russian embassy. The adventurers who took on a race with a difference, 230 kilometres over 5 days in the Arctic. And starters' orders for these school kids taking the classroom to the racecourse.
The different type of ramps is incredible, and see how big they are and how much the horses have to jump.
Good evening. Fire safety failings in the capital have been brought to the forefront once again after that huge fire at a block of flats in Whitechapel yesterday. The fire started on the 17th floor, but there was no audible fire alarms. Instead, residents warned each other to leave their homes. Residents have criticised what happened and claimed that they'd raised concerns over the building's stay-put policy some time ago. They'd also raised concerns over the building's flammable balconies, but although its management companies had asked the government 2 years ago to fund their removal, no funds were made available, as Rax Martel reports.
A fire, but no alarm.
There was no fire alarm.
The fire alarm didn't go off. There was no fire alarm.
This was Whitechapel yesterday afternoon. A building on fire, where residents are told to stay put in their homes.
From my bedroom window, I realised a bit of smoke. I can smell smoke, and I looked out the window and I realised the corner of the building on the right-hand side on the top is on fire. It's basically blazing with flame. Well, two of my girls were home. I grabbed them and we ran downstairs. The majority of the residents were already out. I thought I was one of the last ones, but there were more people inside.
Joseph Tassu was working from home with his baby.
I've got a big knock on my door and someone said, "There's a fire, get out, get out, get out." And then I just grabbed my baby and, managed to get out. It was terrible because I saw people going down, shaking and all that stuff.
Today, the roads surrounding the building remain closed. And to passers-by, the damage by the fire is an object of horror and fascination. It took 125 firefighters and more than 3 hours to put out the flames. One woman had to be rescued from one of the top floors, but everyone made it out alive. The London Fire Brigade grateful for this new ladder, the longest in Europe, and one they got after the Grenfell fire.
We helped it by using a water tower, so it helped fighting the fire, but also giving clear observations to our crews. And they are direct lessons that we've implemented since the terrible tragedy of Grenfell Tower.
And like Grenfell, there were warnings. ITV News has learnt the building failed a fire safety inspection in 2020, with residents raising concerns with their landlord.
This is just one example of the building safety crisis. In this case, people were worried about balconies made of timber, but it underlines the fact that it's not always about flammable cladding.
The remediation of that has just been in the air for so long now. I hope that this event, if nothing else, gets some impetus to fix this.
So it's not safe. It's not safe at all.
I don't feel safe to go back in. I can still smell the smoke on my flat, but thinking what happened yesterday and seeing that fire, I don't feel safe to go back in.
No matter how much they say it's safe enough for us to go in, obviously they just can't accommodate all these people. Where are they going to put them? So when you think about it, we're basically going into the building with our own risk, and they won't take any responsibility for it.
So, Rax, who's responsible for this?
Well, this is actually a good example of how bad things get when it comes to fire safety. So as we saw in that report, the residents knew they had a problem back in 2020. They were told about flammable material on their balconies. But work to get this fixed costs millions. So who pays? And this is when it becomes really complicated. The developer, a company called Redrow, actually sold its freehold to someone else, a foreign investor. So we get in a situation when everyone blames someone else to pay for these large bills. As for the government, they only seem to be caring about flammable cladding, but as we see there, the issue is much more widespread. So 5 years after Grenfell, the fire safety issue is still a complete mess.
Indeed. Rags, thank you. President Zelensky has possibly become the face of the war in Ukraine as a wartime president that signifies a defiant country in the face of the Russian invasion. The recognition of his work has been admired globally, so much so a campaign's been launched in London to rename an area near the Russian embassy after him. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, his work has also been recognised in the House of Commons today. He was the first person to ever speak directly to our MPs.
We will not give up and we will not lose. We will fight till the end at sea, in the air. We will continue fighting for our land, whatever the cost. We will fight in the forests, in the fields, on the shores, in the streets.
Well, him talking to the Commons is one way in which the president has battled against the Russian forces and it being recognised in many ways. But the London mayor is now supporting a campaign by the Liberal Democrats to rename Kensington Park Gardens Zelensky Avenue, the base of the Russian embassy. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
For almost 100 years, Russia's diplomats have enjoyed one of central London's most prestigious addresses. Today, the embassy in Kensington Palace Gardens is a focal point for pro-Ukraine protesters. Graffiti and an audio barrage of car horns. And now there are calls for the road to be renamed Zelensky Avenue to honour the Ukrainian president and shame Russian diplomats.
Everybody visiting the Russian embassy and the Russian ambassador himself will get a daily reminder of the horrors that the Russian government are meting out on the Ukrainian people.
Do you like the idea of renaming it?
Well, I think the borough should look at the suggestion made by residents and by Londoners. It's an important act of symbolism in relation to showing Ukraine that we support them.
There are precedents. In the Lithuanian capital, Vilnius, the Russian embassy is now on a road known as Heroes of Ukraine Street. In Tirana, in Albania, the postal address of the Russian embassy is now Free Ukraine Street. And in the Latvian capital, Riga, Russian diplomats work in Independent Ukraine Street. So what about London? Street names can be changed, but there have to be exceptional circumstances. It's not immediately clear if a symbolic act of solidarity or simply embarrassing the Russians amounts to a valid reason. And anyway, the Putin regime seems immune to any attempt to shame it into retreat. Eugenie, a Ukrainian lawyer who lives in Surrey, knows what her country really wants.
40 million people go to bed every night and they don't know if they wake up or if the bomb falls on them. So they fight for all of us, and the least we can do for them is to give them all the military support that we can. We give them the fighter jets to protect the innocent civilians, to close their sky.
That sentiment was echoed by Kensington and Chelsea Council, which has the power of veto over any name change. A spokesperson said it is action rather than symbolism, which Ukrainians desperately need. The council hasn't yet received any formal application to rename Kensington Palace Gardens. Simon Harris, ITV News.
For Ukrainians living here, the worry continues for their friends and family back home. At the Roundhouse tomorrow evening, 2 Ukrainian sisters known as the Bloom Twins are performing with acts such as Sabob Geldof to raise funds for the Disaster Emergency Committee appeal. They spoke to Sam Holder.
What can you do when you're here, but your family and friends back home are under attack? Over the past week, Anna and Sonia have watched from afar attempts to erase their country. The sisters, who perform as Bloom Twins, have worked with world-famous artists like Duran Duran and Seal. They live in London, but come from the town of Brovary, just east of Kiev. The direction from which the Russians are advancing.
Our dad and our grandparents are there, as well as our best friend, and our manager is in Kiev. And honestly, all of them for us like one of the most important people in our lives. And they're so proud to be Ukrainian. I literally called my granddad on the second day of the war, and the missiles were flying above his head. And he said, "It's my house. I'm not going to leave. I'm a proud Ukrainian."
The sisters have organised a special benefit concert here at the Roundhouse in Camden. They've only had a few days, but have signed up singers from around the world.
And my first thought was like, oh my God, I want to be there to help. But then we need to be logical. What can we do to actually make a change? We're not in the military. We're very bad at any of that. So the best thing we can do is show our music and help with our music and educate our followers to what's going on.
They can see no reasons, 'cause no reasons why.
One of those performing tomorrow night is Live Aid organiser Bob Geldof. What's it mean to you that he'll be playing?
Humbling. That makes us feel so happy and so proud to have an artist so iconic to share stages with us and with Ukraine, for Ukraine.
The event is a chance to raise desperately needed funds, but this is also a show of defiance. Putin has essentially said that Ukraine as a country, as a culture, doesn't exist, that it's a mistake of history. What would you say to him?
He's a mistake of history.
The show takes place tomorrow night. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Two incredible women. Well, Mary will have the latest on the Ukraine crisis when the ITV News continues with the national international stories at 6:30.
Coming up on the programme, an historic moment in the Commons as Ukraine's president addresses MPs. Just hours after his defiant video from the streets of Kiev, Volodymyr Zelensky became the first head of state to talk directly to the chamber. But the refugee crisis grows. 2 million have now fled Ukraine. Is help coming from the West? At 7, the Georgian Legion training camp that's welcomed 2 Brits to fight Russia. But are they right to join up? Plus, John Bercow is banned from Parliament after astonishing allegations of bullying. That and the rest of the day's news at 6:30.
12 Afghan women refugees have been invited to visit Parliament. It was an opportunity to talk about their stories and how they're trying to rebuild their lives here. And as Helen Keenan reports, the war in Ukraine was high on the agenda too, with criticism of how long it's taken to provide visas for Ukrainians.
Just 2 months ago, the Prime Minister was making this promise.
In Afghanistan, we are working urgently with our friends in the region to secure safe passage.
Since then, 16,500 have come to the UK under the Afghan resettling scheme. Now, some of those women have met in Parliament. Still having to stay in hotels in London, they met to share their stories with the government.
The hotels at the moment, these are temporary. We will get you into proper homes.
A government that is now facing a fresh humanitarian crisis and coming under increasing pressure to provide more UK visas, this time for Ukrainians.
What I do know is how, just as with the Afghan resettlement scheme, the government has made clear that we are not capping these figures in relation to the family routes or the humanitarian route.
Zara can relate to the fear many Ukrainians are feeling. She fled the Taliban and had been working as a journalist in the country. She's still telling the stories of the women who remain there.
Writing their life story and experience, and it was, honestly, it was very difficult and it was very painful stories.
What sorts of things do they tell you now?
They're, Taliban is starting searching house to house.
Zara was 5 years old when the Taliban banned education for girls, so she dressed as a boy so she could still go to school. She worries girls there now will never be allowed an education. Krima and Arthur's worries are for their families who remain in Afghanistan. They're scared for their safety.
Are you worried for your family?
I'm so worried for my family, and as a student, I have to develop so many anxiety and stress.
I'm worried about the single person who are living in Afghanistan. I'm worried about every people who are living in Afghanistan right now.
What they want now is equal rights for the women who remain in the country. They wish they could still call home. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Stay tuned, we've got the weather to come. And it's a lot warmer than where these women have been running. Plus, what Camilla said when she met Camilla. But first, police have arrested a 60-year-old woman in connection with a murder back in 2008. Martine Vik Magnussen was a Norwegian student who was found dead after a night out celebrating her exam results. Ria Chatterjee is over at Great Portland Street for us tonight, where Martine was found. Ria, this is quite an unexpected development, isn't it?
It is. It's an unexpected development, Charlene, as you say, in a case that's 14 years old now. So let's rewind a moment back to March the 15th, 2008. That is the day when Martine Vik Magnussen's friends reported her missing. Now, the night before, they'd all been out together. They'd been celebrating the end-of-term exams at a club in Mayfair called Maddox. And it was in the early hours of that morning that CCTV footage captures Martine leaving the club with a man called Farouk Abdulhak. Now, the police in the ensuing days after her disappearance, their inquiries led them to this spot where we're live tonight, to a block where Mr. Abdulhak lived, and that's when they discovered Martine's body concealed under rubble. Now, distressingly, the post-mortem examination results showed that she died from compression to her neck and that she had also been raped. So here we are in 2022, Charlene, with this new development. A woman in her 60s has been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender, and she remains in custody. Now, a lot of what police have said today has revolved around Farouk Abdulhak. We know that within hours of Martine's death, he fled the UK, he went to Yemen, and the police message to him today has really been a warning. It's been very direct. They've said that, you know, this case just won't go away, that they'll do everything they can to bring him back to the UK. And of course, we can't forget Martine's family in all of this. They've been fighting for justice for over 10 years, and they've been fighting to keep Martine's name in the public consciousness.
Okay, Ria, thank you. My guests tonight have just completed a 230-kilometre race running for up to 18 hours a day for 5 days. And as if that wasn't enough of a challenge, the race was in the Arctic, so it was cold, as low as -35, in fact. So how did they do it and why? Well, London entrepreneur turned adventurer Vicky Anstey and former Olympian Kate Smith join us now. Ladies, you came joint second, didn't you? I mean, this is no small feat. Why did you guys decide to do this?
We both have a bit of a hunger for adventure and, living life to the full. We've separately done various different experiences in the past. I've rowed an ocean recently, and Kate's done Ironmans and marathons and plenty of other adventures of that kind, and we wanted to do something together. And use that as a platform actually to launch a business together where we will be inviting other people to come on similar experiences, perhaps less extreme than what we've just done, but to help other people go out of their comfort zones and step into fears that they may have, and hopefully help them lead fuller, more exciting lives.
Well, we're looking at some pictures now of you guys mid-challenge, and it just looks so intense, and it's such an immense feat. It's beautiful where you were, though, utterly stunning. But running for 18 hours in 5 days is a lot. It's not only a physical challenge, Kate, but it's also a huge mental challenge, isn't it? I mean, did having each other help with that?
It certainly did. I mean, doing one of these things, it's, you know, when you've done events before on your own and you know, it's one step in front of the other, and actually having each other to support each other was huge, wasn't it? Yeah. And it was definitely the mental challenge, you know, the unknown terrain, the amount of time on your feet and that temperature. I mean, -35, you can't do anything to really practice dealing with that. So it's mind over matter for sure.
It's incredible. You talk about minus 35, and we were just complaining of the cold spell in London last week, which is nothing by comparison. I'll ask you, Vicky, because yesterday there was a survey which showed that there's a lot of young girls who give up sport by the time they reach their teens for various different reasons, including not like being watched, a lack of confidence and feeling unsafe. As a woman who's worked in sport for such a long time, what more do you think should be done to encourage girls and women to do more sport, especially like you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I actually only really got into fitness in my 30s, so I definitely wasn't a born athlete or adventure seeker from an early age. So I've been through that sort of same experience myself. I didn't really have female role models around me growing up to show me what my capabilities could be. So, you know, I think it is about casting a spotlight on people doing the types of things that we like to do and that we seek out, and also really about explaining that we are not extraordinary people, honestly, at all, and that we all have more capability than we think.
Well, I guess you're just normal people doing I guess you're just normal people doing extraordinary things. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. That's all we have time for, but good luck with the business, Vicky and Kate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right, continuing with a look at women in sport and to those who've helped make women's cricket a shining light. Marylebone Cricket Club only allowed women in as members from 1999. At Lord's, the headquarters of MCC, of course, a new exhibition on that history opened today on International Women's Day. Martin Stew went for a look.
With the promise for spectators of a good day's cricket.
For centuries, the only ladies allowed in Lord's long room were waitresses. Today, it hosted a meeting about how to grow the women's game.
Brilliant, incredible skills.
England are currently in New Zealand for the World Cup. Players now paid as professionals, but that progress has been hard-earned.
For a long time in my early England career, I just wanted to be accepted as a cricketer. It was hard to find places to play. There was one team for 3 counties when I was playing.
Claire Taylor now goes into bat for her role with the MCC.
Just over 20 years ago, women wouldn't have been able to sit here as members.
We were actually trying to preserve something that we've had for 200 years and we would like to continue with. It's nothing against women.
I mean, that's not long ago, is it, that those attitudes prevailed?
Yeah, 1999, the first honorary life members, female members of the MCC were named. Every generation has taken things forward to get to a point where in 2014, you know, first professional contracts. And now, you know, we're looking forward to a summer in which cricket is going to be played at the Commonwealth Games.
It's a world away from the 19th century when this is what women wore to play.
The famous cricketer W.G. Grace was coached by his mother Martha, but Grace's daughter actually was also a keen cricket player, but because it was like the Victorian era, he discouraged her from playing because it just wasn't ladylike, it wasn't the thing to do.
Women now earn the same as men to play in the 100 tournament, though sponsorship is a different matter, and that equality is still rare.
That's the standard of the 100.
Claire says female voices in commentary, as well as buy-in from high-profile male players like the late Shane Warne,
young boys and girls coming down to all forms of cricket,
have helped give the game the credibility it deserves.
He was an entry to cricket and a real character. Some of my colleagues from that time have spoken very movingly about his support for them as they came into the commentary box.
This International Women's Day, it's still not an even playing field, but at least the next generation are in the game.
Martin Stew reporting there. The Duchess of Cornwall came face to face with the woman she called her fictional alter ego today. Camilla welcomed Emerald Fennell, who played her younger self in The Crown, alongside other leading women from the arts, politics and business to Clarence House. Emerald said she was nervous she might be thrown in the tower, but that meeting the Duchess was delightful.
It's very reassuring to know that if I should fall off my perch at any moment, my fictional alter ego is here to take over. So, Emerald, be prepared.
I think we're having a bit of a warm spell for the next few days, but with the details, here's Manali.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello there, good evening to you. Our temperatures are going to be turning milder over the next couple of days, although we'll still hold on to a bit of a breeze. It's looking mostly dry for us until Friday, although some of us might just see a few spots of rain as we head through tonight. Let's get some detail on that. This is a weather front that's going to cross us through the course of tonight, just bringing a few spots of rain. Then Wednesday into Thursday, we're going to see some wet weather across northern and western parts. We should escape that. It's not until later on in the week the next system approaches from the west, and as a result we're going to see some outbreaks of rain for a time on Friday. Now back to the here and now. Thicker cloud as we head through the course of the night. Thick enough to produce a few spots of rain, but for many staying dry. With the cloud cover tonight, our temperatures not dropping away quite as cold as they did last night. So into tomorrow morning, yes, a bit of a grey start, but it won't be quite as chilly, and an improving picture through the day as well, because the cloud will sin and break. We've got brighter, sunnier skies as we head through into the afternoon. Still a bit of a breeze out there tomorrow, but temperatures so much milder, highs of 14 degrees Celsius. Feeling quite pleasant if you're going to be in that sunshine. And here's a quick look at the rest of the week. You can see on Thursday, cloudier skies, but temperatures still mild, highs of 15 degrees Celsius. Then we've got some wet weather to come through on Friday that I showed you. That clears through into the weekend. Saturday, probably shaping up the better day of the weekend. We're going to be in between systems, so mostly dry. Temperatures starting to cool off, you can see, and we'll see sunshine and showers as we head through Sunday as well. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Finally tonight, the charity Racing to School has been introducing young people to horse racing for 21 years. They aim to inspire young minds through free, interactive and healthy outdoor learning activities. Today, it helped the 200,000th young person gain access to the sport through Sandown Park in Esher. Antoine Allen has our report.
Overcoming the barriers to racing, one school at a time. Today's bet was that these Box Hill students would enjoy their day at the races.
It's just so much more fun to be here in real life.
Like the different type of ramps is incredible, and like see how big they are and how much the horses have to jump.
When I came here, it's like I felt like I'm so tiny.
Silks and furlongs were the lessons of the day. For 21 years, charity Racing to School has turned race courses into classrooms for children to test their maths, teamwork and a dash of PE.
I think it's really great because there's not many racing opportunities that you can come to actually see, and it's really great for us to see the maths involved in it.
I've enjoyed learning about the horses' daily routine and like how they get onto the track and get prepared for it.
The year 8 and 7 children are too young to bet, but their new knowledge gave some the eye for a favourite.
Yeah, he's definitely going to win.
Attending a race for school event as a student changed Megan's life. Today she works with racehorses and aims to be one of the growing number of female jockeys.
You know, it's such a man's sport at the end of the day, stereotypically. But when you look at the likes of Rachel Blackmore, you know, she won the Grand National last year, Bridie Frost. There's very, very successful women, and it just goes to show you don't have to be a man in this industry to do well at it.
The horses and facilities at Sandown Park Racecourse provided students with a behind-the-scenes chance to a world often seen as only for the privileged.
Also, this is an industry that supports 6,500 people in terms of employment. So really important that we engage with our young people and actually spread it out further so everyone knows that they're welcome to come.
Race to School have had over 200,000 students attend their alternative lessons at racecourses across the UK. They believe each child has a chance to see horse racing in a new light.
To just think about the sport in maybe a slightly different way, whether they might see it on television at a later point or read about it online or whatever it might be, with a bit more inside knowledge. Oh, that's how that fits together, or that's why the jockeys wear those silks, or that's 8 furlongs in a mile, or whatever.
No child won or lost any money, but they gain the knowledge that everyone has a place in the equestrian world. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
That's it. We're back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Coming up, Mary Nightingale's got your ITV Evening News, of course, extended to an hour from now on, of course. But for me and the rest of the London team, no. Bye-bye.